What's going on, guys? Mad Lab here. Welcome to the main event breakdown brought to you by Fantasy Labs. This video is cut a little bit late just because there has been a just disastrous situation going on with weigh-ins and stuff like that. So I had to watch that and target that because obviously I do the projections for Fantasy Labs in the MMA sector of it, and when fights are pulled, things need to be adjusted. So I needed to watch that. So the news I got, just to let you guys know, is obviously Nico Montano missed weight by 8 pounds. So that fight is most likely next. That is disgusting. There's no rhyme or reason for that. This is a pattern with her, and she should ultimately be cut from the UFC. Another one was Johnny Lawrence, a guy, Ronnie Lawrence. I'm sorry, Johnny Lawrence from fucking Karate Kid, a guy who I was super super high on, like really really high on. I really like this kid. His body ended up shutting down in the back before weigh-ins. He's in the hospital. That fight is off. That was also a fight that I had a wager on. Super high on Ronnie Lawrence. So just a lot of things, a lot of pivoting now that I have to redo the projections and stuff like that. So, but here we are here for the main event breakdown. Once again, this is by Fantasy Labs. Let's revert back for a minute. I normally don't do this, but I want to go back. Where is everybody? That were messaging me and were tweeting me and were commenting on videos telling me I was nuts, and TJ Dillashaw is a shell of himself, and EPO and EPO and EPO and EPO. Where is everybody? I haven't gotten one tweet from somebody. Not a bad tweet, not a good tweet, nothing. I haven't gotten any tweets from anybody telling me, maybe you were right. Or screw you, dirtbag, you were right. Or anything. I haven't gotten anything from anybody. So this just goes to show you that you need to understand what things are before you just jump to a conclusion. And I'm not saying you guys, I'm just saying analysts and touts and all these people out there who start talking about these topics that they know nothing about. These are situations where they go quiet. They just want to move on. There, you'll get the tweet that'll say, on to next week or stuff like that. I don't subscribe to that. There's a reason why I don't work with anybody in my space. It's just me and my business partner, and obviously people like Fantasy Labs and stuff like that. But these are a reason for that, because I don't want to subscribe or tie myself to things like that. I want to talk facts. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know anything about volleyball, the rules of golf, or stuff. I don't know any of that stuff. So that I would leave that to guys who do. The few sports that I do know about, you got, obviously boxing and mixed martial arts is my forte. Football, basketball. I actually do love NASCAR because I used to work the circuit a long time ago. So these are things that I know about. You know what I mean? That's what I stick to. MMA and boxing being my forte, so that's what I work in. But when you're talking about PEDs and EPO, and just because it sounds good doesn't mean you have the right to sit there and push people in the wrong direction and give them false information. So that was my whole point. Even if TJ Dillashaw lost that fight, and he didn't get his hand raised, I'd still be proven a point that this guy went to war for 5 rounds on a split decision with a torn up knee that he just got surgery on, and he proved everything that everybody said that he wasn't without EPO. So I hope it's a lesson to you. Like, you gotta watch the outlets that you're listening to. You gotta watch the people that you're listening to, and if they're gonna give you things like this about EPO and about layoffs and about cage rust and all these things, ask them why. You got to ask them the why. That's the most important thing, is not what you tell me. Why can't he be the same person? Why does it wholly erase his entire body of work with his Division 1 wrestling? And why did that one time erase everything? And why do you feel that way? And if they can give you a legit answer backed by science or backed by facts, that's understandable. But if I'm just coming out here and saying, well, you know what, no, there's no way he could win, because A fighter lost to B fighter, and B fighter fought C fighter, so C fighter is going to be A fighter. It doesn't work like that. Things don't work like that. Like, you need to know the why. That's the most important thing. The why. The last company that I was involved with, that was one thing that they were on Sirius Radio all the time talking about me about. That was the one thing they always said, is the reason, things sound and you're comfortable with hearing things that Mad Lab says is because he tells you the why. He doesn't tell you like this is what I think is going to happen. Well, why do you think it's going to happen? So that's my whole point. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be right all the time. Doesn't mean I'm going to be wrong all the time. The fact of the matter is I'm giving you why I feel that way, and I'm backing it with facts. So this was one of my more happy nights, to be honest with you, just for the mere fact that I proved the point. Um, this fight not as good, right? It's just not as good as a fight. You got Uriah Hall and Sean Strickland, both good fighters, but it's no fight that's going to really blow your hair back. You got a guy in Uriah Hall coming from my neck of the woods back in the East Coast. That back in the day, he was the guy. Like he was one of the guys. It was him. It was Dante Rivera was another guy. Jim Miller was another guy. So many guys, and obviously Chris Weidman was another guy. And believe it or not, Chris Weidman and Uriah Hall, they were in Ring of Combat, neck and neck. Like everybody wanted to see that fight. Chris Weidman, Uriah Hall. Chris Weidman, Uriah Hall. That fight came to fruition. Chris Weidman ended up winning that fight. Obviously, he wanted to, Uriah Hall was psyched to get one back on him in UFC, and we all saw what happened to Weidman's leg. Both of their careers, though, they took different trajectories, right? You had Chris Weidman, who ended up winning the championship in the UFC. I am under the impression, and I do like Chris Weidman, but I think that he is a product of a little bit of luck. And I understand you do need some luck in this game, but he's been a product of some luck. I don't think he's as great as his resume says. Very good, but I don't think he's great. And then you have somebody like Uriah Hall, who was supposed to be great. I mean, this guy was a phenom when he was on the regional circuit. Goes into the Ultimate Fighter, has that crazy spinning wheel kick, and knocks that dude out cold, which is one of the greatest highlights you'll ever see. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But he was known as the Ultimate Fighter guy that had that crazy knockout. So they both had two different trajectories. And one of the biggest reasonings behind Uriah Hall's not really reaching the pinnacle of where he was is the mental aspect of it. If you really, really look at the Ultimate Fighter and you watch it, even all the way back then, there was a moment in time we were sitting on the apron of the cage and he was talking to Chael Sonnen, I believe, and he was asking Chael Sonnen all these questions about mental blockages and mental breakdowns. And that was back then. That was when, I mean, he had no reason to have a mental block. I mean, everybody thought he was the shit. Even on the Ultimate Fighter, everybody was eyeing Uriah Hall. Freak athlete, crazy power, dynamic striking, um, throws beautiful feints. I mean, the guy was just a freak. Had all the markings of a future champion. Comes into the UFC, he's got his ups and downs. And it just seems like those mental blockages and is has been a thorn in his side. And he's a very intelligent guy, but he's never really had that structure. He's never really like just settled into one place. And some people need structure. I'm a guy who I can't have structure. I need to work within chaos. I've always been that way my entire life. That's probably why, back in the day when I did work for like the NASCAR and I worked for some of these companies like Nickelodeon and stuff like that, like it was tough for me because it was just too much structure. I need some chaos for me to function properly. I need things coming from all angles, and I need to do it that way. Where some people like to have everything solidified. Like Anthony, my partner, is much more structured than I am. He loves structure, and it works for him. Where structure really doesn't work, and we kind of go back and forth all the time. He's like, "Well, you got to write this down on your whiteboard, and you got to do this." And I get it because it works. Structure works. But for someone like me, I need a little chaos. I need that chaos around me to function. And it doesn't work for Uriah Hall. He needs structure. He needs a home. He needs to feel welcomed, wanted. It's just the way he is mentally. Um, so it's showed in his fights. There's some fights he comes out like a bandit and he's completely dialed in. There's other fights he just doesn't look right. His durability looks off. His timing looks off. He's retreating. It's almost like the Andre Arlovsky effect. Where Andre Arlovsky at one time was just getting sparked in every fight. Every fight he's just knocking out. You're like, dude, he's done. Then all of a sudden he had like a resurgence of durability. It's the oddest thing, and it goes. If you look at it, it does the same thing with Uriah Hall. Look at him against Paulo Costa. Even though he lost that fight, there were moments of time he was taking some fucking shots and he was walking through them. Then there were times where I seen him getting hit by much lesser, opposition with power, and he was just buckling. So it's really a mental thing with him. So he claims that he's got this structure. He found the home at Fortis MMA. He looks a lot better since he's been there. But he's taken on a guy in Sean Strickland who is on the other side of the spectrum when it comes to mentality. He's over confident. This guy just is spewing with confidence. He's got some momentum. He took a little time off. He's back now, and he's just spewing with confidence, and that can do something to a fighter that doesn't have that stability of confidence. It may not happen when they walk into the cage, but it can happen during the fight. Like what he was doing to Jack Marshman when he was saying, "Well, why aren't you going down, Jack? Why aren't you going down, Jack?" Then Jack would hit him, and he'd come back. Why aren't you going? That can rattle somebody that can rattle a Uriah Hall type mentality. And for 5 rounds, I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but that's something you have to look into. Mental is just as big as physical. I've seen some of the biggest guys in the world, some of the most ridiculous athletes in the world that didn't have it up here, and they were just they were shy to pull the trigger. They don't view themselves like you view them. They look in a mirror and they see a smaller person or a fatter person or a skinnier person. It's almost like a form of fighting dysmorphia in a way. Some of these guys, so you got to keep your eye on that. The reason why I think this is a bad matchup for Uriah Hall is because I don't think he's going to be able to get off like he likes. Uriah Hall is a big guy with feints, and he's not going to sit there and throw heavy volume. He knows that he's got the power to connect on you one time, and you can go out, whether it's a kick or a punch. All his limbs got power in all of them. He's very patient. He's very economical with his striking. He doesn't waste too much energy. But when you have somebody like Uriah Hall, who's so fundamentally sound in his striking and doesn't loop up on his punches and kind of throws things down his center line and very direct. Um, the style of Strickland can throw you off because Strickland comes in almost like a Frankenstein, and you'll see him pitter and patter in his hands like this. That's not him doing anything but kind of just feeling the range and keeping you where you're supposed to be, and the most important thing he's doing with that is he's taking away your lanes. He's disrupting your paths. So if my hands are up like this, my hands are going like this, and you're trying to throw straight punches, they're going to be disrupted, whether they're just chipping my fingers or they're going to kind of be disrupted. So it's almost like him trying to confuse you, like look, me and you are fighting, you're standing in front of me, and I'm just sitting here and I'm kind of confusing you like this, and then I'll just throw a punch here and throw a punch here, then I'll so that's what he does. He kind of takes away your rhythm and takes away your paths and that can frustrate a fighter. It'll also slow a fight down. Which is a concern for me when it comes to a DraftKings perspective. It will slow a fight down. Now you got a guy, Rod Strickland, who's priced up in the 9,000s. So even though it's a 5-round fight, if this is the way he's going to fight, and he's going to play the patient game, Uriah Hall's not going to be able to get in. It could really hinder his scoring. Now, if you look at the Uriah Hall end of it at 6,900, it doesn't matter where that fight goes. It doesn't matter if he wins it in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth round, or by decision. He's going to cover his value. $6,900, Uriah Hall covers his value. So there's major upside on Uriah Hall if he can win the fight. I'm not picking him to win the fight, but if he can if he can win that fight, all the upside is on Uriah Hall. As far as Strickland's going to have either situational scoring or it's got to be in a window. I don't see him finishing Uriah Hall early. I don't see it that kind of a fight. I think he respects the power, he respects the striking. He's going to have to really just mind his P's and Q's in the beginning, so you might lose a couple rounds. Then at that point, how much volume was thrown? And is he going to be able to finish him? I do believe that Strickland can finish him late in the fight, but I don't see anything happening early. So there is a chance that he doesn't cover value, even in a knockout win late. So you got to be careful there. And if it's a war, which I don't think it's going to be, that's a different story. But when you roster these guys, you're rostering Strickland to maybe by some stroke of luck get an early knockout or kind of put it on Hall for a round or two and then get a little bit later of a knockout. Other than that, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot more tough for Strickland to hit his value, obviously, than Uriah Hall. but I am picking Strickland to win, so it's kind of a tough sell both ways. But you do definitely want some of this fight. You got to have some of this fight. Do not fade Uriah Hall in any stretch of the imagination. You got to have someone in there because he's got equalizing power. He can put you out in one shot. And if he catches him with some kind of spinning back fist or a wheel kick or something like that, you're going to be pissed at yourself at 6,900 that you didn't have him because he will be on the optimum lineup at that point. As far as Strickland, him being on an optimum lineup, he's going to have to showcase. I'm going to have him because I think a lot of people are going to be jumping over to that value, and sometimes you want to pivot and X the field. So I will have Strickland, but um, tough fight from a DraftKings perspective. I don't see this being a barn burner. From a Vegas perspective, I wouldn't touch it. For every reason that I just covered. I don't think Strickland is worth a 2-to-1 odds. I don't like the inside the distance. I don't like the over and under. I just think there's so many different ways that these guys can approach this fight that I'd rather just sit back and watch it. I suggest you do the same, and I will see you next week.